Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very special show. We have with us Andy Reimer, who has been teaching a form of meditation and a process actually most recently called self-inquiry. He runs workshops in different parts of the country showing people, in a sense, their own omniscient consciousness. And he leads them through a very interesting process, which we went through just recently today. And it really awakens in people a sense of their own highest, deepest self. And it's a very powerful process, and he'll be speaking with us about that on today's program. Andy has had a very interesting and unique background, having been with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi for many years in the TM movement, has been a teacher of transcendental meditation, and since then he was attracted to Satya Sai Baba and went and spent about 5 years or so in India studying with and being with Sai Baba, and has had some very unique experiences there as well. In fact, he was the only person other than Sai Baba himself who was authorized by Sai Baba to teach on the premises of the ashram. So this is quite a distinction, and Andy carries it with aplomb and has been going around this country ever since, teaching what he knows, and having been empowered by such amazing teachers, well, he now is empowering many of his students. So welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you. It's a privilege.
Great. So glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
Good. So first of all, if you would just kind of take us on a little personal tour, if you would, of what it was like in your earlier years when you first got into TM and met Maharishi. What was that like for you?
Well, it was very profound. I met Maharishi after I started Transcendental Meditation.
Yeah.
And when I started TM...
Which was what year?
1970. It was October of 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my sophomore year in college, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I started TM and had a very profound experience from the very beginning, and knew that I wanted to become a teacher of Transcendental Meditation. I just knew it. And as it turned out, friends of mine were very close to Maharishi, and they had gotten word to him that I would like to become a teacher. And however, I was known to be a psychic, and he was concerned about this.
Oh, really?
The concern was that I would become a center of attention, and so I made certain promises that I would not do that, and I would not...
to him?
To him, personally.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That I would not do that and become a center of attention
Nice.
at the course. And
so in 1970, when you were a sophomore in college, you were known as a psychic?
to certain friends, yeah.
To certain friends, right?
Yeah.
I did TM in 1971, so
Oh, yes.
I wasn't considered a psychic, though.
Yes. Well, and that he was concerned about that.
Yeah.
And so I made the promise and went on the course. And then very profound experiences began to happen. And to make a long story short, I simply wrote an anonymous letter to the course leaders about what was happening, and they wanted to know who this person was
Oh.
that was having these experiences. And I felt that if I revealed myself, that I would be in deep trouble. So another night went by, and they asked again, please, this is a beautiful letter, reveal yourself, and we'd like to speak with you. So I did. And it turned out that the letter they felt was very powerful, and had given the letter on to Maharishi, and Maharishi wanted to know who it was. Then Maharishi came from Switzerland to Spain, where our course was, in order to verify the experiences, and that began our relationship.
I see. Verify your experiences?
Right, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
my word.
Yes. Yes.
And so for the next, 15 years or so, is that correct? Or so
Yeah.
you were...
We were very close for 5 years, close meaning I was present during a 5-year period, where seemingly my role was to get up and speak about experiences, and he would comment on the experiences. This happened in the mid-70s.
Wow.
And
What was it like just to be in his presence and know him reasonably well, and what was your real sense of him? You know, people, and I just want to say, you know, people when they know teachers of some renown, often tend to just see them with somewhat of a pious gloss and not the real stuff. And I think it's really important for viewers and others to have kind of the real picture. It's important to have accuracy.
yes,
Do you know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
So if you would, I mean, to whatever extent you feel comfortable, we'd like to know.
Sure.
What was it like to be in his presence?
Maharishi was always extraordinarily supportive of me in the experiences. And he would take time to see me in private whenever it was needed, to see me in private, as well as to speak in front of teachers who were going to be teachers, the experiences, and for him to elaborate upon them. So I always found Maharishi to be extraordinarily supportive and kind and very gentle and absolutely truthful with me. And I still have this very deep and abiding reverence and love for Maharishi, and that has never changed or abated in any way. It's remained the same all these years.
Wow. And was he personable with you as well? I mean, did you feel like a vivifying quality in the relationship, or was it very much student and teacher?
It's very much student and teacher. It was always that, very much student teacher.
Okay.
And I think I structured that myself because I enjoyed being devoted as a student to the teacher. That was my joy, and he allowed that to be.
I see. Wow, so that really laid a very fine groundwork for you, in a sense, for your spiritual path. I mean, later on, it seemed like it bore many fruits.
Yes, and it was nothing that I had done. It was all due to the grace of Maharishi that this happened. And or one can say, well, it was my devotion, but I would say, yes, but how is that devotion inspired? It was inspired by Maharishi.
Yeah. Now, one other question on that before we move on from there, Andy. We use this word, it comes to us largely from the Hindu culture of enlightenment.
Yes, enlightenment.
Samadhi, etc. Now, what, from that point of view, when you look at, is from the classical definition of enlightenment, would you say Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is an enlightened being?
One can only judge enlightenment if one is in that state in oneself. For example, I could not say, by looking at Maharishi, yes, Maharishi is enlightened, only because what are the signs of enlightenment? Lord Krishna is very clear, there are no signs of enlightenment. It's a total inner state. All I
Playing
can say...
the flute.
Exactly.
It's the only thing.
Yeah. Or a guitar, maybe.
Maybe.
But all I can say is what Maharishi inspired within me was that enlightenment.
I see. So it sounds like there's some kind of contagion going on.
Some inspirational contagion.
I see. Very good. Well, thank you for
it's
sharing.
much deeper than that. It's love.
Yes.
And it's the love that allowed everything to happen. And devotion is the deepest form of love. And that is what causes the transformation. That's what causes transformation. That's what really causes the enlightenment to happen.
Yeah, got it. Sure. Oh, that's wonderful. Very nicely put.
It's not in my place to say
Appreciate it.
if Maharishi is enlightened, because the master is the master. That's it. He's the teacher.
That's right. And you hold him in the highest possible regard that your perception can.
Right. For me to
your
say that
heart
Maharishi
can.
is enlightened is like passing a judgment on Maharishi, which I can never do.
I see.
I can only hold him in the highest regard, in the highest light possible.
And that is to the benefit of you both and all around you.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. No, I appreciate the
Sure.
candor. Absolutely. So from there in your life, you came in that your involvement with TM, my sense is it tapered off and you felt yourself inspired to kind of move along a path into a different direction.
Well, what actually happened was this, I gained sort of a celebrity status. It was a side effect of being so present with the experiences, and at one time these experiences were on tape and were used for teacher training. So everywhere I went within the TM movement, oh, there's Andy Reimer.
They knew you.
Right,
Yeah,
and certain presuppositions about me as well. And I felt I wasn't being known as a person. And I felt that it would be good for myself and for others in the movement if I could just sort of gently fade away.
Oh,
So I approached Maharishi with that, and he blessed me with that and says I could do that, yes.
So it was sort of by agreement and for the sake of the movement itself.
And my sake.
And your
It
sake.
was for my sake that I approached Maharishi with this. I wanted to really merge with society, so to
I
speak,
see,
and be known as a person rather than as all the suppositions on this person.
Oh my. It's fame is a rough life, I guess, you know.
That's all in your approach. I just felt
Yeah,
that the
sure.
fame was in a sense undeserved, that the fame was just a side effect of my love for Maharishi, devotion to Maharishi. And whatever happened was due to that. And I didn't really need or seek the fame. And people weren't really knowing me as a person.
It was an image, actually.
It was the image, exactly. And then people could think, well, this is what enlightenment is like. But of course, no one person embodies enlightenment.
It's probably the same as what you referred to in the Course as awareness.
Awareness, exactly. The one is awareness.
Background, yeah, exactly. And not just background, but the general real state of things.
All there is that, and that is awareness, yes.
That's right. We are that.
We are that.
We are that.
All this is that, yes.
So then, if just in terms of this part of it, you then did go in 1987, is that correct? Went to see Satya Sai Baba?
Right. Well, what happened was this, and perhaps there's time to explain the whole story.
Okay.
I'll try to make it brief.
Sure.
But I was not attracted to Satya Sai Baba. I had no attraction whatsoever to Satya Sai Baba or to an avatar in any way. What was the need?
Yeah.
But to make a long story short, one of my closest friend's mother, who was in her 70s, was suffering from a very painful spinal problem that was non-curable. She went to see Sai Baba and was cured, along with many other things that happened. So this caught my interest. And then I had a friend in New York who was suffering from incurable heart disease. And I decided that I would bring this friend to see Satya Sai Baba for that reason. And when that happened, then Sai Baba made it known to me that I was in his awareness and I was coming and all of that. And various things happened, and I wound up being in the ashram for the purpose of helping my friend get over that disease, the heart disease.
And that happened?
He lived for 2 years longer, and what happened was, wherever he went, he started to see God everywhere. Went through a total transformation and wound up in ecstasy all the time, and that's how he passed away. And at the time that he had this diagnosis of the heart problem that was non-curable, he just was willing to accept his death anyway. He was at peace already. But then he was given this gift of this incredible ecstasy. For the last 2 years of his life, he had that ecstasy. And during those 2 years, I was with Satya Sai Baba.
I see.
He later told me, Baba later told me that my friend was just bait to get me there.
Oh, God.
That he wanted me to be there.
And so how did it come about that you were actually, and correct me if my understanding was wrong, but that you were actually teaching on the premises of the ashram? I mean, this is virtually unheard of.
Yes, right.
What was that about? How did that come into being?
Well, what happened was that after a few months of being in the ashram, I would be in Sai Baba's presence during what's called bhajan singing, and sitting in the mandir, and I would go into a state where I was just being filled with this energy. But it was like during that time I could not think a thought. There's no thought, except there was like noise, like a bandwidth noise you would hear, like when you have static on the TV.
Yes.
And except it was full of energy. I didn't know what it was, and this lasted for almost half a year, every day. And I would get up from the bhajan, and I'd be sort of a little bit slightly disorientated for a while, and then I'd be fine. And then the next day, and during that time, I could not look at Baba. It was like my head would go down, and I'd go into the state and be filled with this energy, and then he would switch it off, so to speak, and then I'd go out, and the rest of the day would be fine. It was not uncomfortable. It's that during that time, I could not think a thought. There were no thoughts at all, just like noise.
No images?
No images, no nothing. Just sound. The sound of
not even a very pleasant sound. Yeah.
Oh, it was not unpleasant, but it was just there. I mean, there was no judgment on my part whether it was pleasant or unpleasant, because there was no one there to be judging. It was just happening.
Yes.
I couldn't have a thought saying, "Well, this doesn't sound good." Right. You see, there's no thought like
Indeed,
that as well.
And did it become apparent to you afterwards that Sai Baba was the one orchestrating?
Oh, it became very clear that was going on. And again, I'll shorten many events leading to this, but what happened one day.
Sai Baba stories are just amazing, and one leads into another, and one is more remarkable than the next.
The workshop sort of began spontaneously. And one of the older residents became very concerned about this, what I was doing. And I knew I was doing what Baba wanted me to do, but I wasn't, there are certain procedures to follow which I wasn't aware of. So this lady was very good friends with, recommended I write a long letter of contrition to the administrators of the ashram, asking for forgiveness. I would never do this again, never teach in the ashram. I said, of course I will do this. I gave the letter in. The next day I was called in, and they said, here are the keys to Shed 25. Baba wants you to continue with the workshop. And the posters are up all over the ashram, and they know where to go. Shed 25, and just continue. And that was it. But that 6 months was actually the instruction. He was just pouring this wisdom in, and then all of a sudden it just started to pour out in a spontaneous, very spontaneous manner.
Incredible. And what he was pouring in is now coming out in the form of self-inquiry and manifest destiny?
And manifest destiny, right.
These are two different courses that
right.
Andy teaches.
I wish to make it very clear that I have no association with the Satyasai Organization of America or the teachings that are presented through the organization of the Satyasai Organization.
Right.
That everything that is being conducted through my presence, for example, is all that I gained from being in the presence of Satyasai Baba personally.
Yes.
It does not reflect upon the general teaching of Satyasai of America, the organization in America, or in Europe, or anywhere.
Right.
And that I'm not sanctioned.
There's nothing organizational or institutional about this.
Exactly.
Yes, it's your own personal relationship with him and what happened between the two of you, etc.
Very accurately put, yes.
Absolutely. Okay, good.
The result is the workshop.
Yes, and those two in particular, the manifest destiny in its several parts and the self-inquiry.
Exactly.
God. And so it was happening to you in the form of static, and then having had that experience and having begun teaching at the ashram, you were aware that that was the time when his wisdom, knowledge, love, no doubt,
well, what happened
was in a
was
sense pouring into
what made it very clear was one incident. We were in what's called Shed 25 in the ashram, and these are sleeping sheds usually, but during the day they're used for meeting rooms. And we had on the average of 300 to 400 people a day who were coming in, because people noticed that if you went to the self-inquiry workshop, that you would be called in for a personal interview by Sai Baba. Somehow Swami knew who was coming and who was not coming.
And somehow Swami seems to know everything.
Yes, absolutely. And there are national groups that were in the workshop. We had the Russians and the Germans and the Czechs and the Americans, the Italians, and each group had their own translator.
I see.
So Baba would sometimes switch the time. Sometimes the workshop was in the afternoon, sometimes or in the morning. But it was around the Bhajan times, just afterwards, in the morning and afternoon. So on one afternoon when the self-inquiry workshops were going on in the morning, one afternoon, the German group was called in for their interview, and they were part of the workshop. The next morning, one German lady approaches me and she's real excited. She says, "Oh, we had our interview." And I said, "Well, how was it?" She said, "Well, Mr. Reimer, I must tell you what happened was this. I began asking Swami a question about my meditation that I asked you yesterday morning. And Baba stopped me and said, 'Madam, why are you asking me this question again? Didn't I give you the answer already this morning?'" Meaning,
didn't I give you the answer already this morning?
At the workshop.
Yes.
Because her interview was that evening. So
the power of duplication.
Exactly. That made it very clear what the situation was.
Wow. Well, last few minutes, thank you very much for that. That's really quite special. Can you give us some idea of what you cover in the inquiry workshop, in the self-inquiry workshop? What's the ground of it?
I'll tell you what the goal of it is.
Okay.
The goal of self-inquiry is to firmly establish that one is awareness and what awareness is. And this is our definition of enlightenment, that one is just simply awareness. And the end result of that, what I want for people, is for them to be the authority in their own lives, to know what they're doing in their own lives is correct and right, and that they can make no mistakes in their own spiritual evolution. That has to happen. And that once you're established in awareness, you know that you're awareness, there's nothing else to be done except to enjoy life and you discover who you really are as opposed to who you think you are. Or to be more accurate, what you are, as opposed to who you think you are.
So would you say that there is no who you are, but there is a what you are?
We have the appearance,
if you will.
we have the appearance of the who,
Yes.
but it's awareness and expressions of awareness.
So in a sense, when we say who you are, we are referring more to roles we play, hats we wear in a social context.
Exactly. Another analogy we could use, or a model we could use, is the ocean. The ocean has waves, but the waves are merely the expression of the ocean. But the waves can think, if they had intelligence and self-awareness, that they're separate from the ocean. Because instead of looking into the depth, they're looking in a horizontal manner and only seeing other waves and saying, oh, I'm separate from this wave, separate from this, separate from this wave.
The effect, so to speak.
Exactly.
And the separateness.
Exactly. And they don't, and the illusion of it. They don't see the unifying quality, which is the ocean.
Yes.
So this is the ocean of awareness. And the expressions of that.
That sounds like Maharishi.
Absolutely, very accurate.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a timeless analogy.
Sure, absolutely, and right on point.
Exactly.
Now, I'm gonna actually take a couple of leaps forward just for the heck of it. You made a statement in the workshop, which I enjoyed very much, by the way, and it was very powerful, and I'm feeling some of its reverberations right now as we speak, that there is no free will. Did you not make that assertion?
Well, there is absolute free will on the level of awareness.
Yes.
But from the functioning of ego, where we, even psychologists recognize that it's a combination of genetics and environment. So where is there free will in that? If we're already predisposed to act a certain way, even before birth, and then the process is completed through socialization, then where is there free will?
Sure. Let's say that there's a cultured, conditioned being with a certain genetic predisposition who, at a moment in his or her life, says, "I will to, be a doctor."
Right.
For instance. So, I mean, where is that will originating from your point of view?
Where does anything originate from?
Awareness.
Awareness, exactly. But then the ego assumes that it is the doer, it assumes that it is the originator of intention. It says, well, I am going to become a doctor. But we know from all kinds of studies that's been done in different fields of science that the ego exists in the frontal lobes of the brain. That's where the personality is located. And because of that, of all the extra wiring there, by the time we do something, it's already been done. By the time you realize, I have done it, it's already happened a quarter to eighth of a second ago. And that which says, I did this, was not even present. Because it's there only after something has happened. That's the ego.
Interesting.
And that is a known scientific fact.
Yes.
But the philosophical implications are not looked at very carefully.
Yes.
Because it put us into a bind.
Now, when you say and use the word awareness in the workshop, it actually felt synonymous with many people's use of the word God. Intelligence, source, or God, or divine.
Right.
Is that consonant with your understanding of the
Well,
use
one
of
thing
the
we're
word?
very careful that we do in the workshop, as you know, because you've been through it, is that we don't use terms unless everybody in the workshop agrees to the term in terms of their own experience.
Ah, okay.
So there's certain universal experiences that we always pinpoint these terms to, like consciousness, awareness. So when we use the terms, everyone knows, yes, I know what that means. So it's not abstract. It's not a loaded term.
It doesn't have religious connotations necessarily.
God
That's
is what I would say is a loaded term. Reason
Yes.
being is that it can mean so many things to different people.
And does.
And does, right. To some, God has to be a form, is a form,
Deity.
a deity. And others, God is transcendental, has no form. In Judaism, it's a sin to worship God in form. In Hinduism,
That's what
God
you
is
get.
recognized as
Yes.
existing in form.
Sure.
Who is right?
Right.
Does anybody have to be wrong? It could be they're both right. They're just seeing different
So
aspects.
just do a
of-
detour around the word and you solve
Exactly.
a lot of
so
the
we
problem.
call it awareness.
I see, right. Shoo, I dealt with that one. Okay, so with that being the case, that is in a sense you could say the backdrop and the ego and mind and body are, in a sense, the filters, or even a contraction in physical form of awareness.
Exactly. You can say, for the word filter is excellent. Even lens, you could say. Mm-hmm. It focuses awareness into specific expressions, and those expressions become objects.
And another point that you made, I'm moving right along as you
Sure.
go. Not that we're condensing the workshop into a few minutes, because we're not.
Which we
because
are.
it really needs to. Yes and no, but no and yes.
One thing we should say, the workshop is experience.
Yes, it is. It's experiential.
It's
by all means.
experiential, and it's
you
not-
must reach down in to find the true answers for yourself.
Exactly.
Which is really the basis you're very clear about.
Right. The basis of the workshop is finding the answers within yourself.
Yes.
And the workshop is just simply me as a facilitator asking questions. And these questions simply trigger the attention into deeper levels spontaneously. And I must mention that I've had participants in the workshop from all over the world, both in India and in the United States. And people who walked in who we would say, quote unquote, have no spiritual background. And is just as profoundly affected and moved as one loaded with spiritual background. The reason being is because we're working with a facility everybody has, which is the awareness, the intellect, and the heart.
Yes.
And what happens during the workshop is these questions that I ask are simple questions, as you know, about daily experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But the questions have the effect of driving the one that's answering the questions deeper and deeper into the heart without knowing it. And we think of the heart as emotional, but the heart that I'm speaking about is that which is omniscient, omnipresent.
Ah, okay.
That heart, which is there in every human being, that becomes accessed. And as you know, as the evening progresses, people start speaking from that level spontaneously. Mm-hmm. And you know that they speak with certainty now, not from book learning or something they learned from other people or references. This is now their own wisdom, and they're speaking not from the head to the mouth, but from the heart. The speech
Sure.
comes.
In fact, just kind of connected to this idea is the Chinese concept of heart-mind, where they do
Exactly,
not even
yes,
have
yes.
a notion that thinking takes place in the head brain.
Exactly.
It doesn't exist in their culture.
Exactly.
But thinking takes place through and from the heart.
Well, it's amazing you said that, because that's what the result happens.
Yeah.
Once people complete the workshop, a process has started which continues unconsciously. And that is, people begin to think through their heart. Because once it happens,
Beautiful.
once it starts to happen, it will not stop. It just grows stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger.
Now, we have so little time, and I'm enjoying you so much, and we'll just have to do this again next time I
Absolutely,
see you.
sure.
Okay. What, Andy, would you say is the role of love in the setup?
The setup being,
In the workshop and the perspective that you're bringing forth of awareness being filtered through, in a sense, the lives that we know and are most identified with, what is the role of love in the activity of a human life?
the love is the basis of our life. And of course, the misery that people experience is not experiencing this. But love is the basis of everyone's life. Without love, we cannot even breathe. Love is the very basis of life, but often we don't even recognize it. But the basis of our life is unconditional love.
It's the basis, huh?
The very basis of the life.
Interesting.
And as far as the workshops go, the workshops only happen because of unconditional love is present and omnipresent. And what happens is that unconditional love just becomes known during the workshop. You can feel the transition happening in people. Because that unconditional love is the basis of our being, and it's a matter of becoming aware of it. And people think, well, I'll meditate for that. But it's not necessary. Even meditation serves a limited time, a limited purpose. How often do you have to practice typing before you become a typist? How often do you have to ride a bicycle before you become an expert bicyclist? There's a point where it just is.
Yes, right.
So meditation has a role. But the meditation I speak of is a meditation where you're simply aware of being aware.
Yes.
That's meditation. And
that can take place anytime, any place, anywhere.
Exactly. And it becomes an all-time state with enlightenment. It's just they're constantly present.
That's beautiful. Well, next time, can we pick up where we left off?
It'd be my pleasure and privilege.
Wonderful.
But I must say I was honored. I was honored to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so
great.
much, Andy.
And it was also wonderful that you were a very active participant, not just a listener.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you very much. I was being inspired, truly.
And your camera operator, Rena, as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Great to see you.
In the meantime, be happy.
Yes, I will. Be happy. You too. It's great to have you. You're doing great work, and please continue for the sake of yourself and others.
I must say, this is all due to the grace of Satya Sai Baba. Absolutely.
God bless. Thank you, Sai.
Thank you.
This is Mitchell J. Rabin for a Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. Please give a call and share your thoughts and feelings with me. Hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you all next week.